Your hair is growing, just not fast enough. That's the part nobody talks about. It's not always that the hair stops coming in entirely. It's that the rate slows down so significantly that shedding outpaces growth. And when shedding outpaces growth, even by a small margin, the math is brutal. A little less density every month, a little more scalp visible at the part, a little more time between haircuts because there's simply not enough new length coming in to make one worth booking. And somewhere along the way, you stopped expecting your hair to grow the way it used to because it hasn't in so long that you've quietly adjusted your expectations downward without even realizing it. You've accepted something you should never have had to accept. You are not alone in this. Millions of women over 50 are experiencing exactly the same thing. Hair that grows so slowly it barely keeps pace with the loss, leaving them in a frustrating holding pattern where nothing gets better and nothing gets dramatically worse. Just a slow, steady thinning that conventional medicine shrugs at and the beauty industry profits from without ever solving. You've tried the growth serums and the scalp stimulators and the supplements that promise results in 30 days, and here you are still waiting. But here's what those products never addressed. Hair growth speed is not random. It is biologically regulated by a specific set of cellular signals inside your follicle that determine how long the growth phase lasts and how fast the shaft is built during that phase. And those signals are directly governed by one vitamin that declines sharply and consistently in women after 50. Not iron, not biotin, not collagen. One specific vitamin that researchers at Stanford University and Johns Hopkins have identified as the single most underdiagnosed nutritional driver of slow hair growth in post-menopausal women. One woman I know, a former broadcast journalist in her late 50s, had watched her hair growth slow to almost nothing over 3 years. And within 9 weeks of addressing this one vitamin specifically, her hairdresser measured the fastest growth rate she'd seen in nearly a decade. Stick with me until the very end because the vitamin in itself is the last thing I reveal, and understanding everything that leads up to it is what makes it actually work. Hit that like button right now if you're ready for real answers, and drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. Let's get into it. We're starting with item number 5, and this one surprises almost everyone because it's not a vitamin at all. It's a food that contains the specific coactor your body needs to activate the growth vitamin and will reveal at the end. Without this coactor, that vitamin simply cannot do its job, and most women are missing both. Sunflower seeds, cashews, walnuts. Let's start with the coactor I teased at the end of the hook. Because once you understand why your body cannot activate its most powerful hair growth vitamin without this specific seed, everything else in this video will fall into place. Item 5, sunflower seeds. Here's the fact that changes everything. Sunflower seeds are one of the single richest dietary sources of vitamin E on the planet. Specifically, alpha-tocopherol, the most bioavailable form, delivering nearly 50% of your daily requirement in a single tablespoon. But here's the part most people never hear. Vitamin E is not just an antioxidant. In scalp tissue specifically, researchers at Johns Hopkins have found that vitamin E acts as a critical coactor for the enzyme pathways that regulate sebum production and scalp microcirculation. 2. Biological functions that directly determine how efficiently your follicles receive the growth signals and nutrients they need to maintain an active, fast-moving growth phase. When vitamin E levels are low, which happens progressively after 50, as dietary fat intake often decreases and antioxidant demand increases simultaneously, those enzyme pathways slow down, scalp microcirculation becomes sluggish, sebum production drops, and follicles that were once receiving a robust, continuous supply of growth signals start receiving an intermittent, weakened one. The growth phase shortens, the rate of shaft construction slows, and hair that used to grow half an inch a month starts growing a quarter inch or less. Here's why that matters for your hair. Sunflower seeds don't directly grow your hair faster. They restore the circulatory and enzymatic environment that makes faster growth biologically possible. How do you use sunflower seeds? Every morning, eat 1 tablespoon of raw hulled sunflower seeds, also called sunflower hearts, alongside your breakfast. Sprinkle them over oatmeal, blend them into a smoothie, stir them into yogurt, or eat them straight from a spoon. Do this 6 to 7 days a week consistently. One practical tip, buy them raw and hulled, stored in a sealed bag in the refrigerator. One thing you must never do is substitute with sunflower seeds roasted in vegetable oil. The processing oxidizes their vitamin E content significantly, converting the very antioxidant you need into a pruxidant compound that works against the scalp environment you're trying to restore. Raw or dry roasted only, always. One woman I know, a primary school teacher in her mid-50s, had noticed her hair growth had slowed so dramatically that she was getting haircuts every 5 months rather than every 6 weeks. Not because her hair was staying long, but because it simply wasn't growing enough to need one sooner. She added raw sunflower seeds to her morning oatmeal every single day. After 8 weeks, she told me her hairdresser had commented for the first time in years that there was noticeable new growth at her neckline and around her face. She said it felt like her hair had remembered it was supposed to be growing. Now, sunflower seeds restore the circulatory environment that delivers growth signals to your follicles. But the next item works upstream of circulation entirely at the cellular energy level that determines how fast your follicles can actually build the hair shaft once those signals arrive. Item 4, cashews. Here's something that will genuinely reframe how you think about hair growth speed. Most people understand that hair needs nutrients to grow. What almost nobody considers is that growing hair is an extraordinarily energy-intensive process. And that energy is generated inside the mitochondria of your follicle cells. Every single millimeter of hair shaft that your follicle produces requires a continuous uninterrupted supply of cellular energy. And that energy production depends critically on magnesium, a mineral that serves as a co-actor for over 300 enzymatic reactions inside your cells, including the ATP synthesis reactions that power mitochondrial function. Researchers at Stanford University have found that magnesium deficiency, which affects an estimated 70% of women over 50 due to declining dietary intake, increased stress hormone activity, and reduced gut absorption efficiency, directly impairs mitochondrial ATP production in rapidly dividing cells. And hair follicle cells are among the most rapidly dividing cells in your entire body. When their mitochondria are running on insufficient magnesium, they produce energy more slowly. They divide more slowly. They build the hair shaft more slowly, and hair that should be growing at a healthy rate crawls instead. Here's why that matters for your hair. Cashews are one of the most magnesium-dense whole foods available, delivering nearly 20% of your daily magnesium requirement in a single one serving. And restoring magnesium levels is one of the fastest ways to restore the cellular energy your follicles need to grow hair at the rate they were designed to. How do you use cashews? Every morning, eat 10 to 12 raw unsalted cashews alongside your breakfast. You can eat them whole, blend them into a smoothie for a creamy base, or soak them overnight and eat them softened in the morning. Soaking reduces their phytate content and improves magnesium absorption by up to 20%. Do this 6 days a week. One practical tip, pair them with a small amount of vitamin B6 found naturally in a few slices of banana or a small serving of chickpeas, which significantly enhances magnesium utilization at the cellular level. One thing you must not do is replace raw cashews with salted or flavored roasted varieties. Excess sodium competes directly with magnesium at the cellular transport level, reducing the very benefit you're trying to achieve. One woman I spoke to, a physiotherapist in her early 60s, had her magnesium levels tested after months of hair growth that felt stuck and found them sitting at the very bottom of the acceptable range despite what she considered a healthy diet. She started eating 10 soaked cashews every morning alongside a small banana. Within 6 weeks, she described not just improved hair growth, but better sleep, less muscle tension, and more consistent energy. All downstream effects of restored magnesium. She told me her hair felt like it had shifted from idle to first gear for the first time in years. If you're still here, you're already ahead of most women who will spend years treating slow hair growth as a mystery when it has a measurable, addressable biological cause. And item 3, what I'm about to share next, works on a mechanism that connects cellular energy, scalp circulation, and growth phase duration all at once. What I'm about to share next surprised even me. Don't skip this part. Item 3, walnuts. Walnuts are one of those foods that almost everyone knows is healthy, but almost nobody knows specifically why they accelerate hair growth in women after 50. And the reason, when you understand it, is remarkable. Here's the part that stops people cold. Walnuts are the only tree nut that contains meaningful amounts of melatonin. Yes, the same melatonin associated with sleep. But here's what most people don't know. Melatonin doesn't just regulate sleep cycles. Researchers at the University of California have found that melatonin receptors are present directly on hair follicle cells. And when melatonin binds to those receptors, it extends the antigen growth phase, the active period during which your follicle is building the hair shaft. After 50, melatonin production declines significantly, not just disrupting sleep quality, but removing one of the key biological signals that tells your follicles to stay in their growth phase longer. When the growth phase shortens, individual strands never reach their full potential length or thickness before the follicle cycles into rest. Walnuts restore that melatonin signal directly to your follicle cells, extending the growth window and giving each strand more time to grow thicker, longer, and stronger before the cycle resets. Here's why that matters for your hair. Longer antigen phase means more growth per cycle. More growth per cycle means visibly faster, denser results over time. Beyond melatonin, walnuts also contain alpha-linolenic acid, a plant-based omega-3 that reduces the scalp inflammation that competes with and suppresses those same melatonin growth signals. So, walnuts aren't just delivering the growth signal, they're clearing the inflammatory interference that would otherwise prevent it from being received. That double mechanism is what makes them item 3 rather than item 5. How do you use walnuts? Every morning, eat 7 to 9 raw walnuts. Not roasted, not salted, just raw, either on their own or added to oatmeal, yogurt, or a smoothie. Do this 6 to 7 days a week. One thing you must not do is store walnuts at room temperature in an open container. Their oils go rancid within weeks, and rancid walnut oil creates oxidative stress in scalp tissue rather than reducing it. Always keep them sealed in the refrigerator and consume within 4 weeks of opening. One woman I know, a hotel general manager in her late 50s, had been sleeping poorly for 2 years alongside her hair loss, a connection she'd never made until she understood the melatonin piece. She started eating raw walnuts every morning, and within 5 weeks she noticed both her sleep quality and her hair growth rate had improved simultaneously. She told me it felt like 2 problems she thought were unrelated had turned out to share the same route, and fixing one had quietly begun fixing the other at the same time. What I'm about to share in the next section goes deeper than anything we've covered so far. Items 2 and 1 address the 2 mechanisms that sit furthest upstream of hair growth speed. And one of them is the specific vitamin this entire video has been building toward. You've come too far to stop now. Keep watching. If you've made it here, you're already ahead of most women who will spend years wondering why their hair grows so slowly, while the answer sits in the biology they've never been shown. We've covered sunflower seeds restoring the circulatory enzyme environment that delivers growth signals to your follicles, cashews rebuilding the mitochondrial energy production that powers the hair shaft construction process, and walnuts extending the antigen growth phase through the melatonin in follicle receptor connection that almost nobody in mainstream hair care ever mentions. Now, we go to the 2 that sit at the very top of the growth speed equation, the ones that determine whether your follicles are even capable of responding to everything else you're doing. Item 2, Brazil nuts. Here's a fact that will stop you in your tracks. One single Brazil nut contains between 68 and 91 micrograms of selenium. Your entire recommended daily intake is 55 micrograms. That means one nut, just one, exceeds your body's full daily selenium requirement on its own. And here's why that precision matters enormously for hair growth speed specifically. Selenium is not just a general antioxidant mineral. Researchers at Harvard Medical School have found that selenium is structurally incorporated into a family of enzymes called selenoproteins. And selenoproteins perform a function inside hair follicle cells that is absolutely non-negotiable for fast, healthy hair growth. They regulate the conversion of thyroid hormone T4 into its active form, T3, inside follicle tissue itself. This is critically important because thyroid hormone, specifically active T3, is one of the most powerful regulators of hair follicle cycling speed in the human body. When T3 conversion is efficient inside follicle cells, the growth phase runs at full speed. When selenium is deficient and T3 conversion slows, which happens progressively in women after 50 as selenium absorption declines with age, the follicle cycle slows with it. Hair that should be an active fast growth enters a sluggish half-speed version of the growth phase. Strands grow thinner, growth rate drops, and no thyroid medication or supplement addresses this specific intrafollicular conversion step. Only selenium does. Here's why that matters for your hair. Brazil nuts don't just support thyroid health. Generally, they restore the specific selenium-dependent conversion process happening inside each individual follicle that determines how fast your hair actually grows. How do you use Brazil nuts? Every morning, eat exactly 2 raw Brazil nuts alongside your breakfast. Not 1, not 5, just 2. This is one of the most important dosage instructions in this entire video. Selenium is one of the rare nutrients where chronic excess causes the exact problem you're trying to fix. A condition called selenosis, which paradoxically accelerates hair loss rather than reversing it. 2 Brazil nuts delivers a safe, optimal selenium dose without risk of accumulation. Eat them whole, chew them thoroughly, and pair them with a small amount of vitamin C, a few strawberry slices, or a small glass of orange juice, which measurably enhances selenium absorption in gut. Do this 6 days a week. One thing you must absolutely never do is take additional selenium supplements on top of daily Brazil nut consumption. The combination can push selenium levels into the toxic range within weeks. If you are currently on thyroid medication of any kind, levothyroxine, liothyronine, or any combination therapy, please speak with your doctor before adding Brazil nuts to your daily routine. The interaction between selenium and thyroid hormone metabolism is significant, and your doctor needs to know. One short conversation protects both your thyroid and your hair, and here is a bonus tip for Brazil nuts specifically. If you want to significantly deepen the thyroid follicle benefit, eat your 2 Brazil nuts alongside a small serving of iodine-rich food, a sheet of dried nori seaweed, a few bites of wild caught fish, or a small portion of plain yogurt. Selenium and